All right, let's talk about something that sounds like pure sci-fi. Have you ever been out in the sun and thought, man, what if I could just, eat this sunlight for lunch? It's this awesome idea of humans becoming photosynthetic, just like plants. Well, today we're going to drag that amazing dream out of science fiction and smack it right up against some cold, hard science. I mean, the idea itself is just so cool, right? Think about it. A world where you don't need to worry so much about your next meal. You just step outside. But is that even remotely possible? Could we actually hack our own bodies to pull off what is, let's be honest, one of nature's coolest tricks? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dig into. So here's the game plan. We'll start with a big dream. Then we'll hit the math because the numbers don't lie. We'll look at the huge biological roadblocks, what it means for our diet, and even how it could totally reshape society. And then, of course, the final verdict. All right, first up, the dream. This idea of becoming a solar-powered person. It's like the ultimate superpower, isn't it? I mean, just imagine that freedom from constantly needing to find your next meal. But, the second you start to really think about it, that fantasy bumps up against a pretty big wall of reality. And that reality is that the real question isn't, can we do it? It's how much energy could we actually get? Is it enough to matter? At the end of the day, it's all a numbers game. Okay, so let's get into those numbers. We need to figure out if this is going to be a true game changer or, just a kind of cool biological party trick. And to do that, we need a target. What's our daily energy goal? Well, for the average person, we're talking about 2,000 kilocalories. That's our magic number. Everything we're about to calculate is all about hitting that 2,000 kilocal mark. So the big question is, can our skin actually produce that much? Let's find out. Okay, so problem number one is just basic geometry. You might think, hey, I've got all this skin, about 1.8 square meters of it. But that's not really how it works. Think about it. The sun's only hitting one side of you at a time. So if you average it all out, as you move around during the day, you're really only using about a quarter of your skin as a solar panel. We're already down to just 0.45 square meters. That's a massive hit right out of the gate. And then there's the next big hurdle, efficiency. It's one thing to catch the sunlight, but it's a whole other thing to turn it into energy your body can actually use. That's what we call conversion efficiency. Basically, how good are you at turning sunlight into, lunch? And just look at the difference here between the dream and the reality. In a perfect lab, you might hit, say, 4 to 6%. But actual plants, out in the real world with clouds and changing angles, they're lucky to get 1 to 2%. So, to keep this honest, we got to use that real-world number. So, you take our small patch of sun-facing skin, you multiply it by that pretty low real-world efficiency, and what do you get? A grand total of around 25 kilocalories a day. Yeah, not 2,000, 25. That's like a single bite of an apple. It's barely enough energy to walk for a couple of minutes. To say that's disappointing is, an understatement. Oh, but it gets so much worse because getting even that tiny, tiny energy boost isn't free. It comes with a cost. Our bodies just aren't built for this, and trying to jam photosynthesis into our biology, it opens up a whole Pandora's box of problems. See, photosynthesis needs CO2, right? Plants breathe it in through little pores. If our skin had to do that, we'd be caught in this terrible trade-off. Just to get enough CO2 to make 100 calories of energy, our skin would need to process a whopping 49,000 liters of air. And the price for that, we'd lose about 4.5 liters of water. That's not just thirsty, that's dangerously, life-threateningly dehydrated. And the list of dangers just keeps going. To put chlorophyll in our skin, we'd have to get rid of melanin, our natural sunblock. Hello, skin cancer! Oh, and the process of photosynthesis itself creates these nasty things called free radicals that damage your cells. And get this, the melanin we do have would literally fight the chlorophyll for the same sunlight. It's just a complete biological disaster waiting to happen. So let's just pretend for a second. Let's say we wave a magic wand and solve all of those problems. Does this superpower mean we can finally stop eating? The answer, I'm afraid, is a hard no. And the reason is pretty simple. Photosynthesis is basically a sugar factory. It makes carbs. That's it. But we need so much more. We need proteins, fats, vitamins, minerals, the whole shebang. So even if this worked perfectly, it would only cover a tiny sliver of our energy needs. We'd still have to eat for, everything else that actually keeps us from falling apart. And here is the absolute best part, the perfect irony of it all. The main engine of photosynthesis, this protein called Rubisco, is packed with nitrogen. So to even build this machinery in our bodies, we would have to eat more protein, not less. Think about that. The very process meant to reduce our need for food would actually make us need certain foods even more. Okay, let's zoom out for a minute. The energy gain for one person is tiny. We've established that. But what happens when you give that tiny energy boost to 8 billion people? Now suddenly, the ripple effects could be absolutely enormous. Let's just be super optimistic for a second. Let's say we figure out a way to get 100 calories a day from this. If every single person on the planet did that, well, the collective savings in food would mean we wouldn't need to farm 22 million hectares of land. That is a huge number. And just so you get a sense of how big that is, we're talking about an area of land roughly the size of the entire United Kingdom. Gone from farmland, free to be rewilded. So a tiny, almost meaningless gain for one person suddenly becomes a massive win for the planet. Kind of cool, right? But getting that ecological win would force us to rethink, well, everything. Our cities would need to be redesigned to make sure everyone gets their sunlight rights. Our clothes would become feeding suits. Our entire healthcare system would have to deal with all these new risks we talked about. And then there's the biggest question of all. Who gets this technology? Is it for everyone or just the rich? It opens up a massive can of worms. So we've looked at the math, we've looked at the biology, we've looked at how it would totally upend our world. Where does that leave us? What's the final verdict on photosynthetic people? When you boil it all down, the whole idea is trapped inside a box made of 3 walls. The ceiling of the box is physics. There's only so much sunlight, and we're just not shaped to catch much of it. The floor of the box is biology. The cost in water and resources is just way too high. And the walls of the box are safety. You simply can't ignore the risk of things like cancer and cell damage. And this really says it all. We would never become autotrophs, things that make their own food from light. We'd stay heterotrophs, things that have to eat. We'd just be eaters who get a tiny, tiny little energy subsidy from the sun. It's a vitamin supplement, not a whole meal. Which leaves us with this one last big question. Biologically, the payoff is tiny, but the changes to our society to make it happen, they would be absolutely massive. So the real question isn't could we do it, but should we do it? Is all that upheaval, all that change, really worth getting the energy of one extra bite of an apple per day? I'll leave you with that one.